Aloha and welcome to Connection to the Cosmos with your host, me, Dr. Lisa Thompson, where I have out of this world conversations with extraordinary people. And today my guest is Dagmar Bryant. So I'm going to bring her on in just a moment, but first a couple of announcements. If you have not grabbed my free 20-minute meditative journey to meet your galactic family and guides, make sure you grab that on my website, mysticmanta.com or drlisajthompson.com. And if you're coming here to Hawaii, to the Big Island, Kona side, come on one of my Big Island UFO tours where you will see the night sky in a whole new way using my advanced Generation 3 military night vision goggles. And you can find more information on that website, bigislandufotours.com. Okay, without further ado, I'm going to bring on Dagmar. Hello, Dagmar.
Hello. Welcome. Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah. So let me share with the audience your background because we're going to have, I think, a fun conversation today. So Dagmar Bryant PhD is a UK-based Australian motivational speaker and business coach. She encourages women to pursue their dreams and desires. Her powerful blend of world-class intuition and real-world experience gives her a message that deeply speaks to audiences of her events. Her PhD thesis was on Angels and Archangels, the proof of their existence. So, okay, before we jump into how you decided to do your PhD thesis on angels, because that's quite a different topic, than most, I think, academia would be focused on, I would love for you to share with me and the audience kind of your background, how you grew up, spiritual, religious, something else?
Goodness. Well, my parents I was actually born in Germany. So my parents were Lutheran and we moved to Australia when I was 6 years old, hence the Australian accent. And my parents weren't really strong religious people, but we did go to church every now and then. But the spiritual side of me was something I think I felt and connected into just from a very soul kind of being, from just knowing of their presence from being very young. And I remember one time I was with a lady, and I can't remember her name. Let me just call her Mel. And I was in her class, and she was doing this environment where she liked to sort of sit and have a book, and we were all her little students, but we're all adults and we're sitting around like you would do if you're in kindergarten. And all of a sudden she just started talking about angels, and I just burst into tears. Like, it was just this remembering. I think this was in my early 30s when that happened. It was just this beautiful remembering of something that was just known to me, that was just deep inside of me.
Okay. Well, so you have an interesting background because you have a PhD, but you went to law school too, correct?
I did.
So, okay. So I guess transition me from how you first started. What did you go to school for first?
Oh, well, law was one of those things that I was always passionate about because I have this insane, crazy value of justice and fairness. And I didn't study law until quite late. And I discovered, see, the weird thing is me studying law and then me going into my spiritual side kind of happened within 2 or 3 years of each other. And I'm studying law, I'm working with patent and trademark attorneys, and I'm discovering that it's just not fulfilling that basic need of justice. And it was actually one of my law buddies, and she said to me one day, we're studying, got all the books out on the table, and she says, Dagmar, how would you like to study tarot? I go, like, what? Like tarot? And she was kind of like the instrument of me going down this formal kind of route. And from tarot, I went into this, actually studied mediumship as well. And then the whole psychic thing came about. And along the way, it was that thesis that it was me studying this degree. It was a degree in metaphysical sciences that all of these other things came about. So it was just natural then, from all the study and all the learning that I'd done on my spiritual side. By the way, I quit law because my poor father was absolutely mortified. There was all this stuff going on in the law firm, and I basically said, I'm done. I am just done there. It would take ages for me to go into everything, but I basically started my own business in a spiritual kind of context. I did coaching, counseling, all that kind of stuff. My poor father was absolutely mortified. Like, how can you quit law? Like, you're supposed to be a lawyer. But it was my calling. It was really my calling to help people. And I knew that I never was going to be able to do it in law. Now, these days, I still use, I guess you could call it, my gifts, but I probably don't lead with them as much as I used to, but it's still there. And the funny thing is, most times whether it's through networking, connections, or clients that come to me, there's an element of the spiritual side, because I think spirit just says, yep, she'll help you. She'll get onto that. And, it just works its way out quite magically, actually.
Yeah, excellent. Well, okay, so you're in law school. So then, like, how old were you when you decided to get the PhD?
I think I was in my mid-30s, almost 40.
Okay, so you had been introduced to angels by the lady you called Mel, right?
Yes.
And
That was a bit earlier. That was a little bit earlier. Yes.
okay, well, so when you decided to pursue the PhD, how did you decide to do your thesis on angels and archangels? And then walk me through what your discoveries were.
Well, I guess I have to go back a little bit in time to before all of that. And I
Okay.
want to take you back to when I was about 21, 22 years old, and I had my own experience. And I was a pedestrian walking across a big double lane highway, totally sober. I was due to meet some friends. It looks like they weren't home. This was in, the 80s, before mobile phones. So I went to look for a telephone, and I had to cross this big double highway. Well, what, unbeknownst to me, I didn't realize that the first section of highway wasn't actually in operation. It was like they were still doing roadworks, but it was way down there, sort of thing. And I didn't know that. So, you're doing your look left, look right, all of that. So I did all of that. Then I'm in the middle of the road, and I'm thinking that the cars are going to come from that direction. But lo and behold, I've stepped onto the road, and a car has come from this direction, hit me doing it about 45 miles an hour.
Oh,
Poor
wow.
guy. It must have been such a shock for me stepping onto the road. But what happened basically is that I was thrown into the air and did like one of those fancy tumbles. I don't even know how I did that. Landed on the side of the road. Here's the funny thing. My dad was called, and he came, spoke to the driver. Turns out there was no damage to his vehicle whatsoever, except, like, I would have had a ring on my finger, and there was a tiny, tiny mark on the bumper from a ring, but no damage other than that to the car. I wasn't injured. No broken bones, no nothing. There was a doctor and two nurses on the scene like that. So,
Mhm.
and it was just this most astounding experience. And just knowing I was saved that day by an angel. I mean, everyone said, oh, go get a lotto ticket. You're so lucky. And it's like, no, I don't need a ticket. I know I've already had my good fortune. Thank you very much. Because I was looked after that day. And it's one of the things that's held me throughout my life. And I think that's what made it so easy then to talk about angels. And when I was doing this thesis, I put it out on my social media, and I had so many people connect with me and tell me their stories. And I actually had too many to put into the thesis, but the thesis wanted examples. So I told these stories as part of the thesis of people who had these experiences with beings, and they just wanted to share them. They just wanted others to know about these experiences.
Okay, well, so can you share some of what you discovered? What the proof of their existence? I like that, your subtitle, the proof of their existence.
Well, see, the thing is, angels have been around for a very, very long time, like time immemorial, if you like. I think there was one picture that was drawn 10,000 or however many years ago, and it was in the old Babylonian city of Ur. And there have been pictures, you know, you in the Renaissance, you've got people like Raphael, Michelangelo, and they're drawing these beautiful frescoes of angels. So angels have been around. It's just that in this day of technology, I guess they're not as acknowledged as much. And yet you've got people like William Blake, who talked in his writings about having conversations with the Archangel Gabriel. So those are all examples, and more. Joan of Arc was another one. People who have seen angels, who've had experiences with angels. Some of my own I've had lots of experiences myself. And I believe that we all have the ability to connect with angels, whether it's our angel, whether it's the archangels. We just have to have an open heart and an open mind. And you start having conversations with people, and they'll tell you of things that have happened that have been quite astounding or miraculous.
So for people who don't know much about angels, I've had some other angel people on as guests, and I have been able to experience my, I guess, guardian angel before. And I sometimes call in Archangel Michael to do a blue bubble kind of thing. But so I would love to know what some of your experiences, besides, I mean, that car accident story, that is quite incredible that you were not harmed, the car was not harmed. I mean, so what other ways were you able to interact with your angels, and how did you know that it was angels coming in?
You're giving me goosebumps. You're giving me the chills as I think about some of these experiences. I remember this was a few years, probably about 10 years ago now, with my husband. We were doing a radio show, an internet radio show, and we were talking about some metaphysical stuff. And on this particular day, we always did the show on a Friday. It was sort of done around lunchtime, but in the morning we had to go out, did our shopping, and we just happened to be talking about, should we be doing this show? Is that going to be the right topic for today? Well, would you believe a car came in front of us, turned in front of us, had the registration plate MCHEAL. And it's like, hello, Archangel Michael, hello. Of course we're meant to do this topic. You know, there are signs that angels give us in so many ways. I mean, that was pretty obvious. There was, and I've had, because I'm like you, I really connect with Archangel Michael, and I know a lot of people connect with some of the other angels, and that's okay. But I find that Archangel Michael in a lot of ways is my go-to. And there was another occasion when I was crossing the road. Now, I'd been reading some books, and I think it might have been even in relation to the thesis. And I must have sent this thought upstairs at one point and thought to myself, gee, it'd be really cool to actually see him, wouldn't it? And this one day I'm crossing the road. This is where I used to live in Melbourne. And it was a divided road, but in the middle, you had a little section where pedestrian, so you had cars going one way. Then you have the middle section where you can sort of stand while you're waiting to cross to the other side. So this one day I'm crossing this big road, and there's a bus stop not very far away, but I'm crossing the road and this guy walks next to me. Now, super tall, quite slender, blondie hair, but in kind of quite a trendy kind of cut. And he had those baggy kind of pants, you know, guys wear the ones that are a little bit loose and sort of hanging down their bottom a bit. And he was just looking at me in this really funny way. And I'm thinking, well, I don't know you. I don't know why you're looking at me. But he crossed the road with me to the other side. And then he turned around and went back immediately the other way, went behind the bus stop. The bus stop is made of clear glass perspex kind of material.
Yeah. Okay.
But he disappeared. Like he just wasn't there. And I even now, as I say that, I get the chills. It's like, oh, I know who you were. I know exactly who you were. It was like I sent the thought up saying, can I see you? This is you showing you this, a modern version of you to me. And I thought, oh, that is just so, so cool. And there was another time I was with my girlfriend, Michaela. We were together having coffee in Brisbane, and all of a sudden we just started having this conversation, and all of a sudden we both called out, and he is just so tall, because we're just talking about Archangel Michael, and we've both had these experiences of seeing him. I could go on and on, but there's lots of experiences like that.
Wow. So was that the one and only time that you actually physically saw him, or were there other times?
There's definitely been more. One that I can think of immediately that springs to mind is, in that state when you're just about to go to sleep, you're kind of half awake, half asleep, and all of a sudden, beside my bed, I could feel a presence, and I wasn't afraid, and I didn't want to open my eyes, because it's like when you have a dream, you don't want to open your eyes because you don't want it to go away. But I could feel, like I could see it, like with my third eye, I could see his presence, and it's this most magnificent orange glow, and he had his bit, and he had his sword, and it was just this, it was orange and it was magnificent, and this beautiful sense of calm that came with him. It was just, yeah, I know who you are. And a few times messages have come through from spirit, just a couple of times, with having a conversation, and all of a sudden, my husband said, oh, my husband's very intuitive, and he said, oh, I'm just getting some letters coming through. Is this like one of your relatives? And he said, oh, I'm getting an M and an I and a C, and I'm going, no, it's not one of my relatives, but I know who it is. And it's like, yeah. So it's just stuff like that.
Yeah, excellent. Well, so when you're working with your clients, do the angels come in when you're working with them, or is it more of a personal experience for you?
It depends very much on the client, and like I said, I don't lead with that so much because I'm doing coaching. So I might get an intuitive hit, and I'll say, I'm getting a message, or an intuitive insight for you. Would you like me to share it with you? And that's generally how it starts. I'll just ask them, can I have your permission to share a message that I'm getting? And it depends on how they accept it. Now, to date, I have not had anyone who said, no, I don't believe in any of that stuff. It just hasn't happened that way. So it'll usually start like that, and then there's a conversation that follows, depending then also on their experiences.
Okay. So when you're, I guess, do you really tune in to the mediumship and psychic abilities that you have on a daily basis, or when you're working with your clients? And which of the clairs are heightened for you?
Oh, goodness. All right. The answer is yes and yes. So I do tune into that side of me. I love doing a meditation and connecting into, I guess, my higher self and to what spirit wants to let me know. In terms of my clairs, I probably am very clear or very auditory. So I will hear messages from spirit, and I'm also very sensory. So I feel. So when I talk about, oh, I've got those goosebumps, the chills coming, it's like, okay, I've delivered a message. Spirit will give me those when I've delivered the message that a client's needed to hear.
Okay. And then, and I'm sure you get messages for yourself too.
I do, but I guess I'm a little bit wary of messages for myself. Like, I know I get messages, and I guess I just have to be very careful of not interpreting it to be what I want it to be rather than what the true message is. So I will go to somebody else that I know to, sometimes my husband will say something, oh yeah, I already got that. Okay, thank you. That's my confirmation. So, or a friend of mine, and they'll say something and I go, oh yeah, I got that. All right. Yep. I actually had my husband and I lived in Southern California not that long ago, and we were there for a while, and I was connecting with one of my girlfriends back in Australia, and she said the first words out of her mouth when we got on the phone, she said, what on earth is going on with you? I've had Archangel Michael talking to me all night. I've got, oh, okay, I'm ready. I'm listening. Okay, what have you got for me?
Okay. So, can you share what the message was?
Oh, it was in that particular instance. I probably won't share that because it was, we were just going through a little bit of a hard time, but
Okay.
it was about persevering and just, letting us know that it would be okay. And that was kind of like more messages of reassurance, because there was something that had happened, and I remember it, and I was pretty upset at the time. So it was just really messages of reassurance and getting through it, and we did.
Okay. So, with your intuition and psychic abilities and all of this, was that something that you experienced through your childhood, or did it really come on in your adulthood?
It was definitely it's definitely been something that I've had within me for a very long time. And I can give you so many examples, even being in school. I remembered this in high school. Do you remember what are they called? The Zener cards? You know, the cards that have got the triangle, the circle, the square. Have you ever seen those?
I don't know if I have.
Ah, so there was this one time, I think I was about 15, 16. We did this, I don't know why we did this activity in school, but look it up. I think there's Enna cards, and you pull the cards, you put them upside down, and you just sort of hold it up to the person, and okay, and you have to guess what's on the other side. And the lady I was working with, Chris, she said, oh my goodness, you are so good at this. You are getting so many of these right. So it was stuff like that, through my experiences, even going into work, I would know, I would just know things about people, whether, I'd be able to be friends with them, whether I'd be able to be open with them. Just stuff about them would come to me,
Mhm.
and I would know pretty much I think it's a protective thing, that my spirit team was protecting me about people that probably weren't in my best interest. So I knew to steer clear of certain people, because no, you can't trust them, and just stuff like that. So it's, in a lot of ways, it's been with me for, I don't know, since I was born, I guess. But I just didn't know. I didn't realize I was different. I kind of thought that everybody had that. And it wasn't until I was, oh goodness, it was with an ex. One time I said something was going to happen, and he said, how can you know this? You've just met the person. Like, I didn't know what I was doing. I just kind of thought that that's normal. Like, everybody does that. And yeah, he just sort of freaked him out a little bit. And he just said I was some kind of a weirdo. And yeah, I didn't realize I was different. I just thought that was what everybody did.
Well, so your family, so because you had mentioned your dad, like in terms of being upset of you leaving law and all of that, like does he know your abilities and this transition? Like, did he support you with getting your PhD in this, or what was it? Can you tell me about that?
Well, I'd love to tell you that it's a really nice ending, but unfortunately, it's not. My dad passed away in 2011, and he never came to terms with me changing my career from being, hey, you're going to be this great lawyer, to you're doing what? Like that kind of reaction. I went from being the daughter who's going to really succeed to the black sheep of the family, and he really never got over it. There are passages in the Bible that he'd quote to me from Leviticus, and you shall not mix with I can't remember it, but basically, with seers and prophets and stuff like that. And it's like, Dad, there were people in the Bible who used to see things as well. I mean, what about Daniel and his nice colored coat and all that kind of stuff? And it's like, he never wanted to hear that. So it was actually a really sad ending. And he never got over it, and he never supported it. And he used to have conversations with my sister, because she became the go-to person. and he'd say things to her, and I know this because she told me, he'd say things to her like, when's your sister going to stop becoming a psychic? You know, it's like I was diseased. It's like my poor dad, I actually feel sorry for him, because it's a beautiful thing to acknowledge and to have, but he just couldn't come to terms with it.
Okay. Well, has he ever come through any kind of mediumship to communicate with you since he passed?
Yes. And here's the funny thing. It took hold on, there's a few things. I'll just order my thoughts.
Okay.
My sister is the biggest skeptic out there, so she never believed, but she'd be able to have a conversation with me. She never, it was just not a big topic that we ever spoke about. The funny thing is, when my dad passed away, I would have a conversation on the phone, and she'd say, I had a dream about dad last night. And I'd say, well, what did he say?
Mm-hmm.
And she said, oh, well, he was just on the phone. It was like, I don't know if they had actual conversations. I think they did, but maybe she didn't remember them. And I sort of looked up to the ceiling, as you do, going, excuse me, I'm the medium. Like, you're not having a conversation with me. But it actually took 10 years. And that was only fairly recently, in the last sort of 6 to 10, no, about, must be a bit more than that, about 12 months ago now.
Mm-hmm.
And he came through in a meditation to me, and I just had tears just rolling down my face, because he actually came to me and he genuinely apologized, but it took 10 years. 10 years.
Okay. Well, but so yeah, so I that's what I was wondering, if he had come to be like, I am sorry I didn't support you and all of that. Because what's interesting, why I'm asking that, is my grandmother, when she was alive, she was pretty religious, and she didn't necessarily approve of the things that I was doing spiritually, or that my mother and her other daughter were doing spiritually. And when I was doing my past life regression training, there was a lady in the class with me who was kind of a psychic medium, and she was like, there's a woman standing there next to you, and we figured out it was my grandma. But the message was basically, I was wrong. Keep going on the path you're going on, because you are definitely, closer to, I, all realities are fine, but like closer to the truth of what reality is. And so anyway, so I'm
Wow.
always curious if people really religious or really skeptical, how they come about when they can see things on that other side.
Yeah. Oh, look, I get the whole thing about past life regression too. It's something that I've read and studied, as well as hypnotherapy. And I still remember reading the book by Michael, and I've forgotten his name, Journey of Souls, Destiny of Souls. And some fascinating stories. He's a hypnotherapist who was practicing in California, and he wrote these books about the experiences that people had when they passed over. And it was not just about what happened at the end of this life. It's, well, what happens when you cross to, who you met by, and all that kind of stuff. And I always found that absolutely fascinating. It's like this beautiful pot of just everything kind of nicely just blends together when you can help people, whether it's past life regression, whether it's mediumship, whether even timeline therapy, or the intuitive stuff. It all just works. It just fits together so nicely.
It does. Well, so now take us into how you work with your clients, because we don't have to stay on the angel topic. We can branch out. And how did you decide to actually become a coach? And you've done so many things in your life. Were there life experiences that led you that way, or just knowing, like a calling?
I think it's always a little bit of life experience, or that's my belief anyway. And so many people that I speak to in this field, like even with this conversation we're having here, a lot of the clients that we attract are because of the experiences that we've had that we can help them with. So if a client has a particular issue, then invariably it's something that I've got knowledge of, or that I can help them move through and transition to, to a better place. And that's what I really want to help my clients with. And I find the majority of my clients are, well, they are women. It would never started out as an intention to work with women, but it's now primarily women in their 40s and 50s who really want to have a better life, who want to have a certain amount of freedom, and who want to put themselves first, but probably don't know how to go about that.
Okay.
So I guess breaking free of my law career, it makes me perfectly positioned to be able to go, hey, I know I can help you with that.
Right. Well, and I similarly, like, I left academia. So I have a PhD in biology, and, I left academia, which my family, they were like, what? You worked all these years to get the degree and you have the tenure track position, but it wasn't feeding my soul anymore. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I had quite the journey, but so the people coming to you then, are they looking for career change or just a better life?
I would say it's a little bit of they don't even know exactly what it is they want. They go, I'm not happy. I'm not even sure exactly how to get to be happy. All they know is I'm in this spot, in this space where it's not enough. I'm going through the motions. I'm going through the routine. I'm getting up every day. I'm doing what I need to do. But there's just no satisfaction in it all. The questions that they're asking themselves is, isn't there more to life? Isn't there more that I could be doing? Why am I just, is this all there is? That kind of thing. So they're in this kind of no man's land, no woman's land of something in between, and they just need help. They need that support and an accountability partner to get them there, because these women have tried so much, whether it's reading books, whether it's doing YouTube, whether it's going on courses, and it's never been enough to get them from where they are to where they want to be. It might start out with, oh, yeah, it's great. We'll do this and we'll do that. And then it's a month or two down the track. It's like going to the gym. You get so excited, you sign up for a program, and you go a few times, and then all of a sudden, don't go anymore. And that's kind of what it is with their life experiences. They don't have that, because they don't have that accountability partner, they give up and they believe that it just doesn't work. So
that makes sense.
It's up to us as light workers to help them get to where they want to be.
So can you give us an example of a couple of clients that have made some major transformations in working with you?
Yes, I can give you an example of a lady I worked with recently. She's actually a friend of mine from Switzerland. And I give her as an example because she is a friend, but it was just such a profound transition. She's actually she's like a horse trainer, and she does training with people it's horse-based training basically. And she got to the stage herself where she's gone, I'm blocked. I know how to do all this work. See, this is the funny thing, is she herself is like a coach, like she's a coach. And she got to the space where I just don't know what else I can do. And it just needed someone else to come in, new perspective, fresh eyes, to lead her through. She actually gave me a Google review as well. So it's that transition when you think, even as a coach, as a trainer yourself, you think, I should know this. And maybe sometimes we feel a bit embarrassed asking for help because, hey, we've done all the work, we've done all the tools, but then when we have our own stuff coming up, it's like, well, sometimes it just needs that other person to go, hey, let's try this. I know you've tried this, and this, but let's try this anyway.
Yeah.
So it's just a new perspective. And a lot of my clients have done stuff like that, even in terms of business as well, getting someone else to come in and say, okay, well, this is what's going on. You tell me it's a business problem. And this is the funny thing. People tell me it's a business problem, but then it doesn't end up being a business problem. It ends up being a lot of other stuff that's led up to this business problem. They're relating it to the business problem because, hey, that's the most recent problem. But the
Mhm.
problem started way back here.
Yeah. Beautiful. Well, and I like as a coach, and I've always had coaches, always. Coaches need coaches too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, so what has been the most profound thing for you in all of the work that you're doing, whether it's with your clients or with the angels? Like, what what is your biggest takeaway for yourself?
Expect the unexpected. One of the biggest takeaways for me is, we get conditioned as youngsters, if you like, way back when we're young, to believe a certain way of this is the way the world is. We're caught up in technology. We're doing all of these things like this nowadays. I'm imagining I'm probably a little bit older than you, but think about the technology that we had growing up compared to the technology of people growing up these days. Everything is technology based, and yet there are so many things that neuroscience tells us nowadays are the things in between, that I believe that we need to trust that, if people can believe in God because they have a Bible, that's a leap of faith. But I believe that there are other things as well. And I know that you talk about aliens and seeing the world in a different way. I believe that if we all allowed ourselves that space to look outside the box, to question that not everything has to be science based, that there are things that we don't know and that we can't see,
Yeah.
then just a whole new world opens up for us. And it's a beautiful world.
Yes. Well, and that's one of the reasons why I couldn't stay in academic science anymore, because all of my experiences that I had in my teen years really could not be explained by science. And I knew things existed outside of the realm of what science can measure and all of that, because we don't have the correct tools at this moment. That doesn't mean that in the future we're not going to have those tools to measure it. But yeah, there is just so much more to existence than just this physical third dimensional reality.
Well, absolutely. But also think about the things that we got taught in school. And my husband and I, we like, excuse me, watching like documentaries and, whether it's even shows like Ancient Aliens. You don't have to believe everything in the shows that they tell you, but just to have that open mind to go, actually, there's something to this. Not everything can be proven just by what a scientist tells you. And when they're discovering now that the world is so much older than they ever believed, sort of certainly older than they said to us when I was at school. The telescopes that we have now are seeing universes beyond universes that we never thought were possible. And the thought that I would like to leave your audiences with is, once upon a time, people thought that the earth was flat.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just knowledge. It's when we can expand our knowledge, expand our vision. Those great explorers, if they would have stayed with the thought that the earth was flat, well, we would never have had explorations to other countries, to other places. And it's just about opening that thought process.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, so please share how people can find you, your website, what socials you're on, and all that.
Thank you so much. So my website is dagmarbryant.com. I'd absolutely love to have a chat with you if you have any questions about how coaching can help you move from where you are to where you want to be. My primary social is LinkedIn. So it's Dagmar Bryant, empowerment, resilience, and well-being as my topics for coaching and speaking. And I also have a YouTube channel called Mindset to Success. I haven't done a little bit with it, but if you're looking at ways to shift your mindset, there's some videos there. It was one of my big projects that I did when we first had the first lockdown. It was just like helping people with their mindset. So there's some great videos and meditations on there as well to help you break through of some of those blocks that you might be encountering.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for being here, for taking the time to talk to me and share with the audience. And I just appreciate everything that you have shared and that you're doing out in the world. So thank you.
Lisa, thank you so much for having me on your show. I hope it's been useful for your audience, and it's been just such a delight being here and having a chat with you.
Yeah, thank you. And for everyone watching or listening, thank you for your time, and I'll see you next time on Connection to the Cosmos. Aloha.